This happened to me, and I'm telling it exactly as I lived it. I never thought I'd speak it out loud, but keeping quiet nearly ended me. At the UPS store on South Lamar Boulevard in Austin, under the humming fluorescents and the rattle of a dying printer, my daughter-in-law sneered, "Just sign the paper." The notary glanced down at the boldface line, "Durable power of attorney and special warranty deed," and pushed back her stool so hard it clacked against the counter. "Absolutely not," she said, standing, as my son stared at the tiled floor like it could swallow him whole. The air smelled like toner and hot plastic when I realized the pen in my hand wasn't for me at all. It was intended to erase me. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. I'm 69 years old, a retired elementary school librarian who knows what it means to keep records and remember the exact wording of things. I raised my son Daniel in a cedar-shingled bungalow off Avenue F in Hyde Park, the kind of place with magnolia leaves stuck to the gutters and a porch swing that sings the evening news. His father, Alan, passed away 5 years ago at Seton Medical Center from a stroke that came out of nowhere on a Saturday when we were supposed to meet friends at Kirby Lane Cafe. In the years that followed, I kept the house and puttered, volunteered at the Austin Public Library's Yarborough branch, swam at Barton Springs before the tourists showed up, and organized a once-a-month memoir circle at St. David's where we drank bad coffee and pretended it was about writing rather than survival. Then Daniel married Sabrina. He'd met her at a real estate networking mixer downtown, the kind where everyone says, "Let me circle back," and nobody ever does. She was 10 years younger than he was, and glossy in a way I couldn't describe at first, like a magazine came to life and decided ordinary people were set dressing. She sold houses south of the river and wore blazers even when it was 104 outside. On the night he brought her to dinner, she walked through my door with a bouquet of grocery store tulips and the smile of someone entering a property she already intended to flip. I tried to like her, I truly did. But there was a cold precision in her questions. "Do you have a will?" she asked the second time we met, stirring her tea with my grandmother's spoon. Texas is a community property state in interesting ways, but homesteads are special. I always tell my clients, plan early. "Eleanor does," Daniel said quickly, using my first name like we're colleagues, not mother and son. "Dad handled everything." "Alan and I handled it together," I said, smiling. "Years ago, and it's all in a binder." Sabrina's eyes flicked to the bookshelf, where a row of 3-ring binders stood in neat colors, taxes, repairs, warranties. "Color-coded," she said. "That makes me so happy." I laughed because it was easier than asking why my paperwork should bring her joy. That summer, small things began to shift. A credit card offer addressed to me arrived opened, the edge of the envelope sliced clean as if by a blade. "Sorry," Sabrina said, dropping it on the hall table when I found it. "I thought it was our closing packet." Except my mail is my mail, and she had a key to my mailbox only because she'd insisted it would be more efficient while they were helping me trim the live oak and replace the rotten fence posts. Daniel switched my gas company auto pay from my old account to a new one for rewards. And when I asked where the statement went, he shrugged and said everything was digital now. If I made a joke about her realtor headshots popping up on benches, Sabrina would fix me with a smile that didn't travel to her eyes and say, "Branding matters, Eleanor." The humiliation came all at once, but took weeks to show itself. It's how termites move, quiet until the stairs give under your foot. The day before the UPS store, Sabrina and Daniel arrived with kolaches from Check Stop and coffee from Joe's, all sweetness and steam. "We're taking you to get a document notarized," she said, chewing politely. "It's just housekeeping." "I keep a very tidy house," I said. "This is legal housekeeping." She held up a manila folder. "A durable power of attorney in case something happens. You know, if you fall in your garden and can't sign checks for a week. I can sign with my left, I said, smiling, trying to keep it light. Humor is a deflection, she said. You taught children, you know this. When we stepped into the UPS store, I smelled ink and cardboard. A man in a burnt orange UT hoodie weighed a stack of vinyl records on the scale and talked to his toddler about Longhorns. The notary, a young woman with a silver septum ring and fierce eyebrows, asked for my ID. I passed her my driver's license, and she set it on a rubber mat. Sabrina slid the first document forward. The notary read in silence, then flipped to the signature page. That's when she pushed her stool back and stood. Absolutely not. Sabrina's eyebrows didn't even twitch. Excuse me? This is a deed and a durable power of attorney combined, the notary said, tapping the header with a manicured finger. You can't notarize a signature under duress, and I'm not comfortable with the circumstances. There's no duress, Sabrina said. We're family. I'm right here, I said, my voice small. I can speak. Ma'am, the notary said to me, like she'd been taught in training videos to pivot her body toward the signer. Do you understand that this deed transfers your homestead to a limited liability company, and that the power of attorney gives this woman the authority to manage your bank accounts, sell property, and sign for you? Sabrina's lips peeled back. We discussed this. She's forgetful. It's safer. I am not forgetful, I said. I've been a librarian longer than you've been alive. The notary reached for a printed state pamphlet about elder financial abuse and slid it toward me. I'm refusing, she said quietly. If you want, I'll write a statement about what I observed. Sabrina gathered the folder with a snap. We'll go to another notary, she said, one who understands customer service. We walked into the heat, and I knew something had been stolen long before any deed could be recorded. It was the simple faith that I could rely on my son to be my son. I didn't go home. I walked a block to Amy's Ice Creams and sat under the industrial fan, eating Mexican vanilla with toasted coconut because sometimes a woman has to remind herself she has a tongue. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Mom, she's looking out for you. Please don't make this hard. That's how it begins when you're older. People call your instincts hard and their pressure care. Backstory, like a spine, holds the body upright. After Alan died, I sat at the dining table one night and made a binder labeled, If I Fall. In it, I placed copies of my will, my medical directive, an original power of attorney naming my friend and neighbor Regina, an accountant with a matter-of-fact way of cutting through fog, along with a list of my accounts at UFCU and Frost, the property tax exemptions for my homestead, and every contractor who'd ever touched my house. The power of attorney was limited. It didn't allow for gifts. It didn't allow for transfers to anyone but me, and it sure as Sundays didn't let a stranger sell my home into an LLC with a floral name like Yucca Gardens. That night, after the notary refused, I took down the binder and reread every page. The corners smelled like lemon from the closet sachet. Everything was still in place, but there was a new dread. Sabrina and Daniel had a copy of my driver's license now. She knew which buttons on me were soft, and I had learned in the UPS store that she had the nerve to press them in public. The next day, I went to the Travis County Clerk's office on Airport Boulevard, where the tile floors are scuffed from ring binders being wheeled in and out all day, and I asked to search for my name. The clerk was patient. You can use the public terminals over there, she said, nodding at a row of screens. If anything's been recorded against your property, it'll show up. Documents can be filed electronically now through Simplifile or e-recording partners, so check recently. Recently, I repeated. How recently is recently? Same day, she said. Sometimes within hours. I typed my name. There I was. Marriage deed from 1979, warranty deed from when Alan and I bought the Hyde Park house, an affidavit of death of joint tenant, recorded by me after his passing, a release of lien after we finished paying off the mortgage. Nothing else. I breathed and felt my ribs expand. But breathing isn't safety. The absence of a thing isn't the absence of intent. Regina came over that evening with a legal pad. One-party consent, she said, tapping her pen. Texas is one party. You can record a conversation you're a part of, start documenting. If they try this again, we want dates, times, names. Names, I said. Her LLC was called, she mentioned it once, Blue something. Look it up, Regina said, and we did, on the Texas Secretary of State's website, searching by Sabrina's name until one hit appeared. Blue Yucca Property Group, LLC. Manager, Sabrina Pratt. Registered agent, a mail drop on Congress Avenue, formation date, 3 months earlier. She formed an LLC for my house, I said, tasting the words like sucking on a penny. Regina put her hand over mine. Not for your house, she said. For houses, but yours is the one she knows best. I slept badly. In my dream, the porch swing unhooked and fell, and when I stood to fix it, the chains turned into lines of a signature I didn't recognize but belonged to me. In the morning, I found a note stuck to my back door in Sabrina's handwriting. Let's try again today. It's complicated if we wait. The word complicated stood out like a hot stove. I didn't call her. I called Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid and left a message with their elder law unit. Then I made muffins, because my hands know what to do when my mind is frightened. While they baked, I opened my late husband's toolbox and pulled out the old metal tape measure he'd carried to measure table legs and trim. I stretched the tape across my dining table and stared at the numbers. 18 inches, 24, 30. The trick, with wood or with people, is to measure twice and cut once. Sabrina wanted to cut me first, then decide how it might fit. By afternoon, Daniel arrived alone. He moved easily through my kitchen like a boy who still lived there, took a muffin without asking, and leaned against the counter. "Mom," he said, "you embarrassed us yesterday." "I protected myself," I said. "You don't understand how vulnerable you are," he said. "Do you know how many scams target older homeowners? Sabrina's dealing with a probate nightmare in Round Rock where the kids waited too long, and now a developer bought the lien at a tax sale." "I pay my taxes on time," I said. "It's not about that," he said. "It's about putting everything where we can manage it if something happens." "We," I repeated. "We who?" He rubbed his eyes. "God, you always do this." "Do what?" "Ask who's on the title to my house?" "Sarcasm is a defense," he said, parroting his wife. It would have been funny if it hadn't been mine that he was using. I wondered when exactly my son started practicing lines in a mirror that reflected her. "Daniel," I said, gentling my voice, because love is sometimes a series of attempts to unspool a knot without breaking the string. "If you need help, you know I will never leave you stranded, but I won't sign something I don't understand, not because I'm stubborn, because I'm sane." He rolled the muffin wrapper into a tight ball. "We booked another notary," he said, avoiding my eyes, "at the FedEx office by the HEB on Red River. Tonight." "Tonight," I said. "We or she?" "Both," he said, and for the first time I realized he was afraid, too, not of losing me, but of angering her. I nodded and sent him away with a container of leftover chili. Then I called Regina and we made a plan. It felt strange and thrilling, like making a pillow fort when you're 70 and telling yourself it's tactical. At 5:30, Sabrina texted, "Be ready at 6:15. Wear something simple." I laughed. A deed is not a debutante ball. I put on my oldest UT sweatshirt out of spite and tucked my phone in my pocket. When they pulled up, Sabrina's lips were tight, and Daniel kept the car radio a notch too loud. At the FedEx counter, a bored man in a blue polo asked who needed notarization. "She does," Sabrina said, nudging me like I was a shopping cart. He slid over a laminated placard listing acceptable IDs. I handed him my license. He barely glanced at it. He stamped a page with a perfunctory thud and slid it back to me. "Sir," I said, forcing my voice to shake like it did earlier, "before I sign, could you please read me the title? My glasses are foggy." He stared at me as if to say, "Then wipe them." "Durable power of attorney and special warranty deed," he read aloud. "Special warranty," I said, loudly enough for the people in line to hear. "That means limited guarantee of title, right? And an LLC is taking my homestead? Am I supposed to be under duress?" People turned. Austin is polite, but we understand theater. Sabrina hissed, "Eleanor!" The clerk froze, then looked more carefully. The shape of the evening changed. "I can't notarize if there's a question of coercion," he said, quieter now. "Ma'am, do you want to sign this?" "No," I said. My voice didn't shake at all. "I do not." "Daniel," Sabrina said, "do something." But Daniel's hands were in his pockets, and his shoulders were rounded, and for the first time since that UPS store, I felt the smallest gust of victory stir the hair at the base of my neck. We left without signatures, Sabrina's heels clicking like pistol hammers. She didn't speak until we reached the car. Then she turned and smiled in a way that showed every tooth. "You think you're clever," she said. "You're not. You're old." The word old didn't stab so much as confirm. I am old, and that means two things. I've run out of time to be naive, and I've had decades to practice patience. I smiled back. "You'll have to work harder," I said. That night, I moved my binder into a safe deposit box at the UFCU branch on Duval and put a sticky note in its place. "If you're reading this, nothing in here is for you." Then I called the Travis County District Clerk and asked about temporary restraining orders. "We can't give legal advice," the clerk said kindly, "but you might want to consult an attorney about a TRO to prevent property transfer." I left another voicemail with legal aid and emailed every elder law attorney in the state who had a website that didn't look like it was built in 2004. By morning, one wrote back, a woman named Meredith Sloan with an office near the new Civil and Family Courts facility on Guadalupe. She offered a consultation at 10:30. Meredith wore boots under a navy suit and shook my hand like a person, not a client. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and only once poured me more water. "You did well," she said at the end. "You did very well. Notaries are your first line of defense, and your neighbor is right about documentation. Texas is one-party consent. You can record your conversations with Sabrina if you're present. We'll file a petition for a temporary restraining order preventing any transfer of your homestead. We'll also send a cease and desist to her LLC and a preservation letter to your son warning against spoliation of evidence." "Spoliation," I said, rolling the syllables around, "means destruction." "Means don't you dare," she said. "I'll also draft a memorandum of interest to record with the county clerk, basically a public flag on your title that says litigation is pending, so any buyer knows they're stepping into a hornet's nest, and will contact the Texas Real Estate Commission if she's licensed, because they don't love hearing about agents preying on family for property." "She'll say I'm incompetent," I said. "She'll wave some doctor's note that says I'm forgetful and tired. I'm tired because she's making me defend my life like it's a quiz." "We'll get a capacity evaluation from your PCP," Meredith said, "and if they try to haul you into a guardianship court, we'll meet them there. But first, we make it hard for them to slip anything past the clerk." By afternoon, a process server in scuffed boots knocked on Sabrina's door in South Austin and handed her the TRO. That night, my doorbell rang. It was Daniel, alone, his eyes bloodshot. He stood on my porch without crossing the threshold, a boy again for a blink. "She says you're trying to ruin her career," he said, voice flat. "I'm trying to keep my house," I said, "and my name." He looked past me at the hallway, where his height was marked in pencil up to the age of 16. "You don't trust me." "I don't trust her," I said, "and I don't trust you when you're with her." He flinched. "She says you're manipulative." "She told a notary to ignore the law," I said. "She opened my mail. She tried to slide me into a signature the way a waiter tries to slide a bill under a drink." He shook his head. "You're making everything dramatic." Things become dramatic when someone tries to take them from you, I said. Bring me their hands off and watch how quiet I get. He left without hugging me. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood until the grain left an imprint like a faint map of rivers. In the morning, Sabrina posted a photo of herself on Instagram in front of a sold sign, hair glossy, eyes like glass. The caption read, "Hustle never sleeps." The comments were a chorus, "You're a queen, get it." I wondered if anyone else had ever looked at her and thought, "You work like a pickpocket, not a queen." That afternoon, Meredith called. "Good news. The judge signed the TRO. It's effective immediately. I recorded the memorandum of interest with the county clerk." She paused. "Bad news. Your son called our office and left a message asking for clarification on how to get around the TRO because Mom really does want to help." I saved it. I didn't cry. I went to the kitchen and took down my calendar. The squares were full of tiny notes: book club at Bookwoman, Regina's daughter's baby shower at Central Market, my garden club's plant swap at Zilker. I stared at the month. Sabrina wanted me compressed to a signature. Instead, I opened the farmer's market tote I keep by the door and started filling it with staples: bottled water, granola bars, batteries, a spare phone charger. It felt like hurricane prep, except the storm had my son's face. 2 days later, Sabrina tried an end run. The doorbell rang at noon, and there stood a different notary, a middle-aged man with a leather satchel and a look that said he'd flown under too many radars. "Mobile notary service," he said brightly. "Ms. Eleanor, ready for your signing?" I looked over his shoulder. Sabrina's white SUV idled at the curb, her sunglasses reflecting the world back at itself. "What documents?" I asked. He pulled out a stack. "A quitclaim deed. Oh, we don't use that in Texas. Sorry, force of habit. It's a special warranty deed and a general power of attorney." "The court issued a temporary restraining order," I said. "I'm prohibited from transferring any interest, and so is anyone else. And I am not granting power of attorney. I already have one on file with an agent I trust." He looked genuinely surprised. "They said you were eager?" "Then they lied to you," I said, soft enough that my voice didn't carry to the car. He hesitated, then nodded. "I'm sorry," he said. "Call us if you ever need legitimate services." Back in his car, he sat for a long minute, with his hands on the wheel, then drove away. Sabrina didn't get out. She texted 5 minutes later, "You've made this ugly." Ugly, I thought, looking at the live oak that Alan and I planted in 1981 when Daniel lost his first tooth. Everything good is ugly before it blossoms. Meredith escalated. She filed a petition seeking a temporary injunction and requested an evidentiary hearing. She also drafted a cross-complaint alleging attempted elder financial exploitation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and declaratory judgment quieting title. Those phrases landed on me like bricks that, when stacked properly, could become a wall. I printed the pleadings at the library because my ancient inkjet would have given up halfway, and when I walked out into the sun with the weight of paper in my tote, I felt armored. The hearing was set for the new Civil and Family Courts facility on Guadalupe, a handsome glass building that makes you think someone finally remembered justice should breathe. Regina came with me. In the elevator, a public defender with a coffee cup said, "You'll be fine," and I wanted to believe her even though she wasn't speaking to me. In the courtroom, Sabrina wore a charcoal suit and a smile that didn't touch her pupils. Her attorney, a man with a bow tie that made him look like an apology, stood beside her. Daniel slumped a row behind, eyes fixed on something no one else could see. Meredith leaned toward me. "Let her talk," she whispered. "They always say too much." The judge, a woman with a calm face and a reputation for patience that far outstripped what I saw that morning, called our case. Meredith spoke first, laying out the attempted notarizations, the LLC, the mobile notary at my door, the mail. She slid across the notary's written statement from the UPS store. "And there's this," she said. a recording my client made at the FedEx office, where the clerk ultimately refused to notarize after realizing the signer was under pressure. The courtroom speakers crackled with my voice, asking if I was supposed to be under duress. It sounded braver than it had felt. Sabrina's attorney rose slowly. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding born of love. My client is a licensed real estate professional who regularly advises families to manage assets responsibly. Ms. Eleanor is elderly and recently widowed and has expressed worry about her ability to keep up with bills. This was quite simply an attempt to protect her. The judge's eyebrows lifted. By transferring her homestead to an LLC controlled by your client? For liability protection, he said, brightening. It's quite common. Is it common to combine a general durable power of attorney with a deed in the same signing packet? And the judge asked. He paused too long. It's efficient. Meredith didn't smile. We respectfully request that the temporary restraining order be extended and converted into a temporary injunction. We also ask the court to order that no party interfere with Ms. Eleanor's mail, financial accounts, or utilities, and to require the respondents to produce any and all documents they have created or received that bear her name or her property address. The judge turned to Sabrina's attorney. Response? He fumbled. This is all heavy-handed. There's no evidence of coercion, just nerves. My client has emails from the son indicating that Ms. Eleanor wanted them to help. Emails from the son, the judge said, not from Ms. Eleanor. She tapped her pen. Motion granted. Temporary injunction issued. We'll set a status in 30 days. The gavel didn't hit hard, but it landed like a sunrise. Behind me, Daniel stood quickly, as if leaving faster could get him out before guilt arrived. Sabrina stayed seated, staring at me like I'd killed a pet. Meredith squeezed my hand under the table. We're not done, she whispered. We're only starting. And because revenge is not an event but a practice, I went home and made a list. A librarian's list, double-spaced, file complaints with the Texas Real Estate Commission and the Austin Board of Realtors, record my capacity evaluation with my PCP, order a credit freeze from all 3 bureaus, file a change of address fraud alert with USPS and place a hold on my mail for pickup, buy a doorbell camera and save every clip to the cloud. Ask Regina to stand with me when I pull bank statements at Frost showing attempts to add authorized users. Write down every memory that aches but clarifies. At midnight, my phone lit. A text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting even over a screen. I took a screenshot and added it to the folder named Blue Yucca, Evidence. The next morning, Meredith called. I need a favor, she said, something that might be risky. I'm old, I said. I assume everything is. We want to see if Sabrina tries to violate the injunction when she thinks she can get away with it. I've arranged for a friendly mobile notary, Mrs. Ortiz, who'll call Sabrina, pretending to be someone willing to do a discreet signing for an LLC manager who says her mother-in-law insists on handling her affairs. We'll record the call. If Sabrina asks for backdating or suggests language or hints that the signer might not be present, that's tampering with a government record. Will it work? I asked. People like her can't resist shortcuts, Meredith said. They see rules as furniture to be rearranged. At 2 p.m., I sat at my dining table while Regina and I listened to the call on speaker. Hi, this is Alma with Austin Mobile Notary, Mrs. Ortiz said warmly. I got your inquiry about a signing. Sabrina's voice came through clear as glass. Yes, it's for a deed and POA. My mother-in-law is nervous about offices, so we'd like you to come to her house. She spooks easily. I'll need to see her, talk to her, examine her ID, Mrs. Ortiz said. Standard? Sure, Sabrina said, but the signing needs to be tonight. No waiting period. I'm available at 7, Mrs. Ortiz said, and I can't backdate anything. A beat. Then Sabrina laughed. Of course not. We also need to be clear. If there's a court order related to this property, I can't proceed. Another beat. There's no court order, Sabrina said smoothly. I watched the injunction order on my table catch a slant of sun like a mirror. Okay, Mrs. Ortiz said. Text me the address. When the call ended, Regina looked at me. She lied, she said almost admiringly. On tape. Meredith filed a motion for contempt the next morning, attaching the audio transcript. The judge set a quick hearing, irritated now, the way a person gets when a child stares straight into their face and says they didn't take the cookie while crumbs freckle their lips. Sabrina's attorney objected to the recording. Entrapment, he said weakly. It's a phone call where your client volunteered to break the law, the judge said. This isn't a drug sting. It's a notary appointment. Outside the courtroom, Daniel finally cornered me in the hallway. Why are you doing this to us? He asked, as if I'd broken his favorite toy. To us? I said. I am saving myself from you. You've always been dramatic, he said again, almost childlike, a loop stuck in the groove. You've always been my boy, I said, and then his face did something like a crack in dry clay when rain hits it, a softness I hadn't seen in months. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but Sabrina appeared at his shoulder, her perfume like a decision. We're leaving, she said, and he closed again like a book slammed by someone else's hand. I built a kind of war room in my dining area. My typewriter from college sat under a lamp as a talisman, next to printouts of every email Meredith sent, which I clipped neatly to folders labeled Mail, Title, Injunction, Notary, and Daniel. I kept my phone plugged in and my recorder app open. I left the porch light on, and I started sleeping with a baseball bat under my bed. Ridiculous, I know, but it kept my spine straight. One morning, I woke to find my garbage can toppled in the alley and a smear of what looked like oil on my back fence. I reviewed the doorbell camera footage and watched a figure in a hoodie do it at 3:07 a.m. When I zoomed in, the gait was familiar. Sabrina had a way of walking, like she was stepping over something you couldn't see. I called APD's non-emergency line and filed a report. The officer who came was young enough to be my grandson. He wrote everything down and watched the video twice. We'll increase patrols, he said. You're doing everything right. He paused. My abuela kept a bat under her bed, too. It turned out not to be oil. It was ink. On the fence, written in thick black strokes that ran in the heat, were the words, sign or watch. I leaned close. I touched the rough cedar and came away with smudges on my fingers like bruises you could wipe off if you tried hard enough. I scrubbed the fence with bleach until the words turned into a ghost of themselves. Then I put on my nicest dress, navy with a white collar, and went to church, because spite goes better with hymns. Meredith's next move was surgical. She subpoenaed Sabrina's emails from Blue Yucca's registered agent and requested records from the Texas Secretary of State related to the LLC's filings. She also filed a complaint with the USPS about mail tampering, and suddenly the postmaster at my little Hyde Park station knew me by name and told me she'd keep an eye out for anything strange. At Frostbank, the manager in a crisp blouse sat with me for an hour, clicking through screens to ensure no view only access had been granted to anyone but me. There were attempts, she said, eyes narrowing. Twice. Someone tried to add an authorized user online but failed the verification questions. We've put a note on your account. The note felt like a charm. But charms don't stop hurricanes. They make you believe you can tie your windows down with string and hold. I knew now that Sabrina's strategy wasn't just legal, it was psychological. She wanted me tired enough to surrender. She wanted Daniel between us, wobbling like a fence post she could kick until it loosened. So I changed the game. I invited Daniel to lunch at Magnolia Cafe, where the waitresses have seen every kind of heartbreak and bring more coffee without asking. I arrived early and sat with my back to the wall. When Daniel came in, he looked around with that nervous deer flick of the eyes children get when they think a parent might jump up and hug them in public. I didn't get up. I let him find me. When he sat, I didn't touch him. "I want to show you something," I said, and slid across the audio transcript where Sabrina lied to the notary. I didn't speak while he read. I watched his face go through the tiny earthquakes of realization. "She said she was protecting you," he whispered. "She said there was no court order," I said. "There was." He rubbed the bridge of his nose like he was trying to erase a line. The waitress set down 2 cups and a plate of queso and didn't look at us because she'd already seen the shape of our table too many times. We're going to put the house in an LLC for tax efficiency," he said, speaking as if he were on a podcast about wealth building. "It's safer." "Which one of your mentors told you that?" I asked. He went still. "I can fix this," he said. "I'll talk to her." "No," I said. "You will listen to her. You will listen to how she talks about me. You will sit very quietly and consider that every time she said we, she meant me, with your mother's assets in my hand. And then you will decide whether love is a project or a person." He stood like he might run. Then he sat again. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said, so softly I almost missed it under the buzz of Saturday talk. "You are still my boy," I said, and for once he didn't flinch at the word. "You are the boy who cried on my shoulder in the ER at Seton when your father died. You are the boy who helped me plant that live oak, who learned to measure twice and cut once. You are not a blade." He nodded. When he left, he didn't hug me still, but he paused at the door and looked back. It was something. That night, around 10, my phone pinged with a video message. Regina, who had kept watch like a saint with a whistle, sent a clip from her porch camera across the alley. It showed Sabrina walking along the fence, reaching up as if to steady herself, then pulling back her hand as if she'd touched fire. The timestamp read earlier that afternoon. I saved it, then forwarded it to Meredith with a subject line that felt like a prayer. "We have her on the fence." Meredith replied within minutes. "Tomorrow," she wrote, "we move." The end.